Okay, so here is the start to circles. Um, if you're going to learn about circles, we need to talk about the parts of circles. First thing would be what is a circle itself? You're like, well, it's a round shape. I'm like, yes. It's actually comprised of an infinitely many points, okay? An infinitely many large set. Okay, that was a good sentence, just kidding. Um, Infinitely many points that are equal distant from the center of the circle. Okay. If one is a little bit further away, it wouldn't be a round circle. Okay. And so all the points on one flat plane that would be equidistant from a given point that is the center. And then also, you name a circle by the center. So you can call it circle C, or you can call it the shape circle C. Okay. And so just like you can do segment AB with a segment over it, or use the word segment in front of AB, there are two ways to name a circle. The radius is going to be starting at the center and going to one of the points on the circle. The plural is called radii. And then a chord would be if you connect any 2 points on a circle, it may or may not go through the center. And then the diameter is the longest chord of a circle, and it passes through the center. And so the diameter is all the way across the circle through the center, okay, the longest chord that you can draw with a circle. And there's infinitely many diameters you can draw on any circle because you can face them going like up and down and slanted, but they just have to go through the center. The radius is halfway across the circle, starting in the center and going to any point on the circle. And so the relationship between the diameter and the radius is that if you double the length of the radius, you get the length of the diameter, or if you want to find the radius, you take half the diameter. And you probably have heard of these before for sure. The next thing is that all circles are similar, okay, proportional to each other. And so like, because they're the same shape. And so they are dilations of each other, okay? If you name the circle that's to the right, you could call it circle C, or draw a circle and write circle C. Okay, and then in this picture on the right, if you talk about the distance, or not the distance, the segment that is going to be formed between X and Z, that is a chord, or because this chord actually goes through the center of the circle, you're going to call it the diameter. CY is the radius. Okay, so from C to Y is a radius. W to X, that is a chord. Connects and 2 points on the circle. So W and X are points in the circle. If you connect them with a straight line, you're going to get a chord. From Z to Y, again, also as a chord. From Z to C, connects the center with a point on the circle. So that's going to be the radius. And then C to V is also another radius. Okay, there you go. Spelled it a little funny. IUS is how you saw it. The next thing is the dimension of radius is in measure. It's a linear dimension. So it's like four units long, or 10 units long, or 10 centimeters, or 8 feet, long. The length around a circle is also a linear dimension. So the circumference is going to be the distance around the circle, and you measure in units, okay? Measured in units, or it could be in centimeters, or it could be in feet. So if you ran around a circle, like I ran 2.5 miles. Yeah. And then also people asked me just on Friday, why did people think of pi? You know what? Actually, they discovered if you take any circle, no matter how big it is, take the length of it and you put it over the length of that circle's diameter. And if you take those two decimals and you divide them, circumference over the diameter, you will always get a number. The more accurate you are, the closer it is to pi. And so every single circle, if you take the length of its circumference and put it over its diameter, you will get the number pi. Okay, and the number pi is 3.14, but then it's irrational. It never ends, doesn't repeat. And so people express it using the pi symbol because it's much too long to write out all the digits. Okay, you can't even do that. So to find the circumference, you can either do 2 times pi times r, or you can do, since 2r is actually what the diameter is. Notice it's right here, 2 and r. You can just say, I just want to call that d. Okay, so pi times 2 times r, or just pi times d. And so double the radius and times it by pi, or just take the diameter times pi. That'll give you the circumference. And you always leave it, you also always label it in terms of units, okay? Label. And use units or inches or centimeters or feet, okay? Whatever makes sense for the question. The area is how much space is within there, a circle. And so area is going to be the radius squared times the pi. So you have to do radius squared and times it by pi. You got to use PEMDAS. And so you can't use the diameter. Take half the diameter, get the radius, take the radius times itself again. You can use buttons on your calculator and then times it by pi. Concentric circles, concentric means the same center. So if you take a circle and you're like, okay, it has a center there, and then you draw a circle with the same center, but just a little bit bigger radius, you're going to get another circle. You draw another circle that is going to have the same center, but it's going to have a radius a little bit bigger. You're going to get concentric circles. Inscribed means inside. So you can take a circle and you can inscribe it inside of a shape. It means it touches each of the sides of the shape that it's in. It's like it fills the box completely. If you think about putting a ball inside of a box, if it touches all the sides, all 4 sides, all 6 sides in a box, then it would be inscribed. And so this shape could be inscribed inside of a circle as well. So we'll be talking about inscribed shapes. When it's inscribed perfectly, all the vertices touch the circle, or the circle touches all the sides of the figure. And so inscribed means inside, circumscribed means outside of the circle or outside of the shape. So I'm not going to test you about inside versus outside, but I just want you to kind of be familiar. You can put a shape inside of a circle or put a circle inside of a shape. Now, review from probably middle school math is, can you find the circumference and the area of circles? Okay, so if the diameter is 18, you know the diameter means all the way across. So if that's 18 centimeters, we need to say the radius would be half that, that'd be 9 centimeters. And then to find the circumference, you're going to do pi d, okay? And so let's do the diameter, pardon me, times pi, and then we're going to label it, and that's going to be in centimeters. One thing that you should do is you got to make sure that you find the answer, and then you say what dimension is it? Okay, is it centimeters, feet, inches, inches squared, centimeters squared, etc. Area is in square units. Radius, diameter, and circumference are all in just plain old units, not square units. It's only square, yeah, that goes into that. Now the next thing is we're going to use our calculator, and you'll want to get out your graphing calc to be able to say, hey, how can I figure out these answers? So I kind of keep my calculator open as I'm figuring these. So if it says leave it in terms of pi, well then put the numbers together appropriately and then leave the pi. Don't evaluate it to get a decimal. Leave it in something pi. And so it says also give it rounded to the nearest, let's see what this says here, nearest 10th. Okay. Okay, so if we want to do 18 and then pi, you're not going to do 3.14, you're going to do 18 times, and you're going to do, the pi key is just above the 7. Actually, I lied about that. It's just above the division key. There you go. 18 pi, and that will give you the decimal. It says round to the 10th. The 10th is one place. So that would be 56.5, and that would be also in centimeters. So rounded to the tenths would be 56.5. In terms of pi, it would be 18 pi, which is pi d. The next thing it says do area. And so to do the area, we're going to do radius squared times pi. So the radius is 9, so that's 81, and then pi, and that's going to be centimeters squared. I should have made these blanks a little bigger. And so the area would be 81 pi, and you label 8 centimeters squared. In your calculator, you're going to do 18, and then you can do pi. My calculator knows that if I don't put a value, like a time sign, it means time. So 18 pi, I just put in my calculator, and it is going to be, oh, I did that wrong. Let's do 81 pi. It's like, why did I get the same answer? Because I did the same question, but that was the previous problem. So we've got to do 81 pi, and then we're going to put enter, and you're going to get 254.5, and that's going to be centimeters squared. Okay, so label area in square units is like how many squares fit within a figure. Okay, the circumference means how long is it around it. To find the area, you're looking about how many square centimeters. A centimeter is a centimeter by a centimeter would fit within that shape. Okay, and so if you do it to scale, and so that's the area. The next one says if the radius of a shape is going to be 15 feet, what would be the diameter? That would be 30 feet. Always label the linear dimensions in terms of feet, inches, etc. The circumference is pi d. So if the diameter is 30, so we're going to do 30 pi, and that's going to be in feet. And if you do on your calculator 30 pi, you're going to get the answer to be 94.2, and that's going to be also in feet. Okay, I'm going to highlight the answer to get this black box popping up. So 30 pi, or 94.2 feet. If it said go hundredth, you'd keep two places. So in this case, it would be 0.25. And then the area, we're going to take radius squared. The radius is 15, so we're going to do radius squared times pi. And we are going to just, if you want to figure out what 15 squared is, you're going to do 15, and you're going to square it. And that is going to be 225. So you're going to do 225 pi, and that will be feet squared. And then if you want to figure out what that is, times pi, I'm going to take that times, take you the previous answer, times it by pi. And then we're going to get 225 pi is about 706.9, and that's feet squared. Again, we're rounding to the tenth, so we're going to keep just one decimal place to the right of that decimal. So we're going to say the 5 tells us to round it up to 9. And so my answer is going to be either 225 pi in terms of pi. That's the exact answer. The decimal and rounded answer is 706.9. Okay, let's keep going. The next one says, tell me the value of each of these segments if WC is that. So I'm going to have to open this up a little bit so we can see what's going on here. Okay, if the distance from W to C, well, that's a radius, is 6 centimeters. Okay, well then X to C would be how much? Well, X to C is also a radius, and all radii in that same circle must be the same so that it would make a round circle. So this would be also 6 centimeters. C to Y would also be a radius. That would be 6 centimeters. Now X to Z is all the way across the circle. That's 2 radii put together, so it'd be 12 centimeters to make the diameter. Okay. The next one asks us to solve this question, and I'm going to scooch a little bit so you can see this. Okay. Okay. So as we do this, it says find the diameter and the radius of a circle with a given circumference or area. So they give us a circumference of I'm thinking of a circle that has a circumference of 32 pi inches. So since the circumference formula is circumference equals pi d, and instead of giving us diameter or radius and having to find the circumference, they give us the answer to circumference. So this circumference is that. So instead of C, we're going to put 32 pi. So take 32 pi and put it in place of the circumference. That equals pi d. And our hope is to find the diameter and the radius. And so to solve this equation, we're going to divide both sides by pi to get d by itself. Now, it just so happens that there's a pi on the left side, and it will cancel out. So pi over pi is 1, and then we're left with 32 equals diameter. And the diameter, that means the diameter is 32. Since we're speaking about inches, we're going to write the diameter is 32 inches. And then that means half of it would be the radius. That would be 16 inches. Okay, so If they give us the circumference, put it in for C and solve it for D, and then you can find both the diameter and the radius. Here, they give us the circumference to be 15 feet. So if circumference equals pi D, I like the shorter formula when I'm doing this. I know that the circumference equals 15. So in place of C, I'm going to put a 15 equals pi D. I want to get D by itself, so I'm going to divide both sides by pi. It's kind of like if you had 15 equals 3D, you would divide both sides by 3 and it would cancel out. So you would divide this side by 3 as well. Now, so I'm going to divide this by pi and it will cancel out. And I'm going to divide this side by pi. However, there's no pi's that'll cancel out. So I'm going to have to use my calculator and go 15. I'm going to push divided by, and I'm going to do the pi key. So if there's a pi, value that cancels out on both sides, well, then get rid of it. If there isn't, you might have to actually just take 15 and divide it by pi and get an answer. And I'm going to get about 4.7746, blah, 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 blah. So the diameter equals 4.77. We'll just go with that. 4.77, we're talking about feet. So 4.77 feet. That means if you want to do the radius, you can just say, I'm going to take that and I'm going to divide it by 2. Okay, if you've got the diameter, divide it by 2 to get to the radius. And you're going to get 2.39. And that's in feet. It's always wise to keep all the decimals. And I want you to know you can arrow up on your calculator and be like, oh, I want to get the radius, the diameter. If you want to do that, okay, I got that one. I'm going to take that number and push enter and then push divide by 2. You can actually, go grab whatever number you wanted to get. So arrow up and grab either the answer or the problem. You can rework things if you're like, oh, I made a mistake. You can go up and grab a problem and say, oh, I've got 15 divided by 2. I want to do it 16 divided by pi, and so you can actually just type over and change the question to make it whatever number you need it to be. Okay, so the next thing would be, I've got the area. Okay, well, the area formula is equal to pi r squared. And instead of giving us circumference, they give us the area is 169. So instead of A, we're going to put 169. And that's pi r squared. I want r by itself. Again, we're trying to find the radius and diameter, so we're going to divide both sides by pi. It cancels out on that side because it's times you're going to divide. That's how you undo things, is multiplication means division. If I divide this side by pi, or put it as a fraction, you can do in your calculator 169 divided by pi. And you're going to get 53.8. Okay, so 53.8 approximately equals r squared. Now the thing is this, I've got to get r, I have r squared. Now I need to square root both sides. So if you want to square root this, you shouldn't square root the rounded off part. So you should do the square root. And you should go grab that prior number, the 53.8, that number there, go grab it. So grab that, arrow up to it, and then push enter. And then you can take that value and say, I want to take the square root of that number, and that will give me the value of the radius. So that means the radius is about 7.33. And that is in centimeters. Why? Because we're talking about centimeters in this question. If I take that number times 2, okay, if I just push times 2, it takes that previous answer, times it by 2, and I get 14.77 or 67. Okay, so there we go, radius and diameter. So you should know how to take a number and divide it by pi. You should be able to say, I want to square root it, how to be able to do second square root to get to that answer. Here, the next question, they give us the area is 625 pi. Now, be careful to watch for that. That pi is part of the value of area. And so we know that area equals pi times radius squared. And so this right here, it goes for the area 625 pi equals pi r squared. If we want to get to r, we're going to divide both sides by pi. This cancels on that side, and this side also it will cancel out. If it didn't cancel out, you'd have to divide it by pi in your calc. And now what we have is 625 equals radius squared. To get rid of the squared, we're going to square root both sides. So we're going to do the square root of 625, and that will give us 25. So R is equal to 25, and that's in inches. And then if we times it by 2, we're going to get the diameter is 50 inches as well. So that's pretty helpful. The next questions we're going to do are going to be amazing. We have a rectangle that's inscribed inside of a circle. Notice all four vertices of this rectangle are inside the circle, and they tell you that A to B is 12, so that these are both 12. And then BC is 5. And they said, hey, can you find the circumference? Well, we need the diameter. And so in this case, we can draw a diagonal of this rectangle, which will be the diameter of this circle. Okay, and so we can know that from rectangle world that the corner is going to be 90 degrees. And from Pythagorean theorem that works only on right triangles, we can do a squared plus b squared equals c squared being the hypotenuse. So we can do 5 squared and 12 squared will give us the hypotenuse squared. And that's 25 plus 144 equals c squared. If you add those together, you get 169 equals c squared. Again, you can do second square root. And you do 169. And you get 13. So that means that your diameter is equal to 13. It looks like it's in centimeters. So that means this length is 13 centimeters. This is also a Pythagorean triple if you remember those. So the distance across there is 13. So to find the circumference, you're going to do pi times d. Diameter is 13, so it'd be 13 pi, and that is in centimeters. And then to get the answer, you're going to do 13, and then you're going to do pi. Oopsie, that is not what I wanted. So I'm going to go back here and push delete. If I can, let's see if I can push delete here. Delete. There we go, 13 pi. There we go. And that is about 40.8, and that is in, oh, it says hundredths, 84, and that would be centimeters. If we want to do area, we would take the radius squared times pi. Okay, and so in this case, the radius, so we can do this real quick. If we do the area, we could do the radius. The radius is 6.5, and we would have to square it and times it by pi. So if you want to find the area of this, you would do 6.5, and you would do squared, and then 42.25 pi, that'd be centimeters squared. So that's the area if you actually cared about that. So if you want to find the area of it, or if you want to do figure out what the decimal is, you could take 42.25 and times it by pi. And the answer would be about, this is equivalent to 132.73, and that would be centimeters squared. Okay, the next question, if you know this is 5, it's an isosceles inscribed right triangle. And so we can find the hypotenuse by doing 5 squared plus 5 squared equals the hypotenuse squared, which is 25 and 25. That's 50 equals c squared to square root 50. Let's break it down, okay? Square root of 50 breaks into 25 times 2, or 5 root 2. So the circumference would be 5 root 2 times pi. And that would be in inches. And then if you want to figure out what that is as a decimal, so you do 5 root 2. And then you do it times pi. It is, I mean, you can do the 5 root 2 times pi and figure out what that is in decimal form. And your answer to that would be about 22.21, and that'd be inches. All right, so that would be an intro to circles. Do you know their parts? Can you do you realize you can put shapes inside there? And you can do the Pythagorean theorem if you have right triangle still. To find the area, you do radius squared times pi. To find the circumference, you do pi d. Make sure you label your circumference, lengths of radii, and diameters in terms of units or inches or feet, sorry, squeet, maybe not that. And then also if you do area, you're going to do inches squared, feet squared, etc. All right. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a great day.